Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, starting with Ayin Gimel Amud Beis at the new Mishnah. The Mishnah continues to discuss when, in which circumstances, do various batim in the chotzer must contribute to the Erev Chatzeros. Says the Mishnah, Ha'achim shahayu oichlin al shulchan avihem v'yeshinim bateim. If there are brothers that are being supported by their father, the simple reading of the Mishnah is that they are eating at the same table as their father, in the same house as their father. But they live in different batim. They sleep in different batim in that chotzer. Tzrichin eruv l'kol echad ve'echad. They must contribute to the Erev Chatzeros. Lefikach im shochach echad mehem v'lo eirav mevatras v'shusoi. Therefore, if one did not include himself in the Erev Chatzeros, he will oiser the Bnei Chotzer, whereby he must mevatel his reshus to enable everybody to then use that Chotzer. Now the Mishnah asks, Masai, when is this true that the Achim must contribute to the Erev Chatzeros? Bisman shemolichin Eruvin l'mokum acher. That's when they bring the Eruv to another place, another bias in the chotzer. But says the Mishnah, im haya eruv ba etzlon, if the eruv will be brought to them, then they will not have to contribute. Or if there's no other people who are living in that chotzer, it's just them, the father and the children, then they also do not have to then contribute to the Erev Chatzeros. It's considered to be one unit. Einan tzrichin arev. Now the Gemara makes a diuk on this Mishnah. Shma mina, we can derive from our Mishnah, Mokoim lina garim, from the fact that it states over here that the brothers who are being supported by the father sleep in another bias, and the understanding, the simple reading of the Mishnah implies that they're eating in their father's house. So we see the fact that they have to make a contribution to Erev Chatzeros must mean that the fact that they're sleeping in their own house, that is the overriding factor. And that's what the Gemara says. Shmamina mokom lina gorim. Rav Yehuda marav b'mekable pras shonu. Rav Yehuda is saying of Rav that no, they're not actually eating on their father's table. They're being supported by their father. They're eating in their own houses where they are also sleeping. So you have no proof that where they are sleeping is koveya for them to contribute to the Erev Chatzeros. Tonu Rabbana, Gemara brings a brayso, Misha yesh lo beishar achsadr umerpeses bechotzer chaveiroi hareze einoi oiser alav. These are all places where it's not a typical residency. So therefore they're not going to oiser the bnei chotzer. However, the brayso goes on to say, beis hateven, if it's a house that stores straw, beis habokar, or a corral, a stable, beis ha'etzim, where it stores wood, ubeis ha'oitzaros, or other types of things that it stores, a storehouse. All these things are also considered to be valid dwellings, and therefore hareza oiser alov. If these are in the chotzer with others, they will oiser the bnei chotzer, if they did not contribute to make the Erev Chatzeros. Rabbi Yehuda argues, and he says, Einoi oiser ele mokum dira bilvad. The only time that they were oiser is if they're in a makom dira. The Gemara will define what this means, makom dira. Rabbi Yehuda, Maise ben Nafcha, shahayu lechamesh chatzeros beusha. There were 5 different chatzeros in the area of Usha. The girsa that's changed over here that I think is more understood is shahayu lechamesh oitzaros beusha. There are 5 different oitzaros, treasuries, storehouses in Usha. Uba Maisa lifnei Chacham va'amru, and the Maisa became in front of the Chachamim, and they stated, Eino oiser ella beis dira bilvad. Is not going to oiser only beis dira bilvad, which is l'chora Rabbi Yehuda's raya. Ask the Gemara, beis dira salga daitach, only if it's a residency. That's what you mean to say. The fact that it's a residency alone. Ella ema makom dir. No. What Rabbi Yehuda is coming to say over here is that makom dira. Ask the Gemara, but what is makom dira? My makom dira It's a machlokes. Rav Omar, on top of Ayin Gimel with Aleph, Mokom Pita. Wherever the person's food is, that's his dira. That is his Mokom dira, and that will be koveya, whether he has a residency or not. Ushmul Omar Mokom Lino. Shmuel says where he sleeps, where he's lodging, that's going to be then koveya, whether he's going to be obligated to be included in the Erev Chatzeros or not. Meisvei, the Gemara asks a question on Rav, who just said that it's the food, the pita, that is going to then koveya, whether he is going to be considered to be having a dwelling or not. Haroim vehakitzim vehaburgonim v'shomrei peros. All these types of shomrim. Bizman shedarkan lalin ba'ir, when they are typically going to be dwelling, they're going to be lodging in the city. That means to say that they also going to eat where they're lodging in the city. Harei hein ke'anshe ha'ir. Behold, they are like the people of the city, and therefore, in regards to Erev Tchumim, they will count 2,000 amos from the borders of their Tchum, from the ear, outside the ear, 2,000 amos. Bizman shedarkan lalin besodeh. In a time, in a situation where they are typically lodging in the fields, but they're eating in the city, yesh lahem alpayim lekol ruach. They have 2,000 amos from where they are lodging. In other words, not from the borders of the city, but where they're lodging. So you see from over here that where they're lodging, that is what's koveya, the residency. So it's a kasha on Rav, who said that indeed the pita, the bread, the food is where a person is drawn after. Answer Gemara, no, you have no proof from there, because Hasam anon sahadi the imamtu luhu rifto, Hasam tfei nechel luhu. There we can attest, we can testify that indeed if you would bring them bread over there where they are located in the fields, then they would be quite happy to then go ahead and eat in the fields. Only since they don't have food in the field, they have to come to the city in order to eat. But really, the mokum where they in the sodeh where they are dwelling is not only because of dwelling; it's because where they would eat too. So you see that that's not koveya just because where they are dwelling. Rav Yosef said, "Lo shmiya li hashmaita." I didn't hear this halacha that was stated in the name of Rav, that the pita is what's koveya, a person's residency. Omar le Abaye. Abaye said, At amrisnan lina lilon, you said to us, Va'aha amras nilan. And in this Mishnah you said to us. In other words, Abaye is reminding Rav Yosef, his Rebbe, who had an illness and forgot some of his learning. He reminded him that he had taught in this regard that he did hear the statement of Rav, that Rav did say that the pita, the food, is what's going to then be kovei, a person's residency, as follows: Va'at amras nilon, va'aho amras nilon. The achin, our Mishnah, ha'achin shahayu oichlin al shulchan avihem v'yeshenim bebateihem. The Mishnah states over here that when there are brothers who are being supported by their fathers, so then by their father, they're going to then be able to then go ahead and because they dwell in all of the other, they have their own dwelling in that chotzer, so they have to then make an eruv of the kol echad, tzrichin el eruv kol echad ve'echad. Each one has to be part of the contribution of the eruv chatzeros. Ve'amrinan loch, and we, as the Talmidim, said to you, Rav Yosef, shmamino mokom lina gorim. We can derive from here that the mokom lina is gorim. Why? Because the mashmos over here is that they were eating, and they were eating by their father on the shulchan avim, even though they were dwelling in their own houses. And it says that since they were dwelling in their own houses, they have to make their own eruv. So it's mashma, we said to you, that we can derive from here that the mokom lina is garim, where a person is going to be dwelling, that's going to be koveh, his residency. Where is he going to then lodge? Va'amris lo nalo, and you had then said to us about this, Omar of Yehuda Omar Rav, in the name of Rav, b'makable pras shonu. No, they weren't actually eating at their father's table. They were also eating in their own homes where they were dwelling. And therefore you have no proof that the lina is what's going to be koveya, because Rav is really saying that it's the pita that's koveya. Tonu Rabbanon. The Gemara now brings a brisa. Misha yesh loi chamesh noshim mekablois pras mi baleim. If there are 5 women who receive their support from their husbands, v'chamisha avodim mekablim pras mi rabbeim, and there are 5 servants who receive their support from their 5 slaves that receive their support from their masters, Rabbi Yehuda, and they live in the same chotzer, but in different batim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira matir ben Noshim v'oiser ba'avodim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is of the opinion that the Noshim are mutter because since they're getting support from their husbands, that's enough, although they live in different houses in the chotzer, but that's enough to give a kesher, a certain type of relationship due to their husband-wife relationship, that they will not have to be oiser on the rest of the chotzer if they did not contribute to the chotzer, to the Erev Chatzeros. But in regards to the avodim, if the masters are giving them the support, then indeed they will oiser on everybody else because they will have to be contributing to the Erev Chatzeros. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava argues on Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, and he says, Matir ba'avodim v'oiser b'noshim. And here it's not exactly understood because it's mistaber like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. After all, it's the husband-wife relationship that the Chara should make it so that it's considered to be one unit, and therefore they don't have to contribute. And yet over here, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says the opposite, Matir ba'avodim, they will be matir, but when it comes to the nashim, they will then have to contribute to the Erev Chatzeros, and they'll oiser on the Bei Chatzeros. Omar Rav explains, why is it that the avodim are matir? My time of the Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, they see v'Daniel bisra malka. By Daniel, it says that wherever he was aware that he was in the bisra of the malka, since he was in the entranceway, the gates of the malka, because since he was being supported by the melech, he felt a responsibility all the time, no matter what he was doing and where he was. So too, the Eved himself, he's now part and partial of the rabbi, of his master, and therefore he will be matir. When it comes to the man and the woman relationship, since he's being supported by the husband, that itself is not good enough to then say that they're going to be combined as one, even though they are married. Says the Gemara, Pshita, it's straightforward, Ben Eitzel Aviv Kida Amoron. Because we said when it comes to brothers in our Mishnah, who are being supported by their fathers, they would, yes, have to then go ahead and make a contribution to the Erev Chatzeros. Isha Eitzel Bailo, Ve'eved Eitzel Rabbi, Plukta Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. This was a machlokes that we just stated, whether the Nashim is Matir or Oiser, whether the Avodim are Matir or Oiser. But tell me, Eitzel Rabbi, what about a student who's being supported by his Rebbe? What's the din there? They live in the same chotzer, different batim. The students are being supported by their Rebbe, and they also eat in their own homes. Do they have to contribute to the Erev Chatzeros, or are they considered part of the Rebbe's residency? Toshma, let's bring the following proof. The Rav, Bei Rav Chia Omar, Rav, when he was a student in the Beis Medrash of Rav Chia, he stated, Ein onu tzrichim la'aref. We don't have to make part of the Erev contribution of Erev Chatzeros. Sharei anu soimchim al shulchon shel Rabbi Chia, because we're dependent, we're being supported by Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia be Rabbi Omar. When Rabbi Chia was a student of Rabbi's in his Beis Medrash, Omar, he stated, Ein onu tzrichim la'arev. We don't have to be part of the Erev Chatzeros. Shaharei onu soimchim al shulchon shel Rabbi, because we're being supported by Rebbe. So we see over here that a student is being supported by his Rebbe. He does not have to contribute to the Erev Chatzeros. Ask the Gemara, Boy mine Abaye me Rabba. Abaye now asks Rabba the following question: Chamisha shegavu es Eruvin. If there are 5 people who dwell in the same chotzer, so it says that each one then collects a pass from each of the bayis to then enjoin them to make Erev Chatzeros. When they want to then go ahead and enjoin with the nearby chotzer, so they can carry from chotzer to chotzer, does one bring their pass to the other chotzer and that's sufficient? or do each and every one of the Bnei Chatzar have to bring their pas to the other Chatzar? In other words, this is really a question that was dealt with on Daf Ayin Beis Amud Beis. We had two different Lashonos. One Lashon, the first Lashon was that according to Beis Hillel, that only one has to go ahead and bring the pas to the other Chatzar. The second Lashon says that even Beis Hillel says that each and every one would have to bring pas to the other Chatzar. So he's asking, which way do we paskin? Omale Eruv Echad Lekulon. Like the Lashon, the first Lashon on Daf Ayin Beis Amud Beis, that Beis Hillel says one pas is sufficient to be brought to the other Chatzar. Ask Rabban Abai v'ho achin. He understands the chigavu damu. He understands that our Mishnah, which states about achim, they are compared to those who then were gavu, those who then collected the pas from each other in the same chatzar. In other words, just when there is no diurim together with them, they're like those who also enjoin together in one chatzar. Viktani, and it teaches tzrichin eruv l'kol echad ve'echad. They have to contribute to the eruv chatzeros. And here he's understanding that means to say they have to contribute to join the other chatzar. Each and every one has to contribute. That's how he's learning the Mishnah. So he's asking a question. If that's true, that's not like you said to me that only one has to then bring the pas to the other chatzar. Here we see that each one has to contribute to the other chatzar. No, hacham mayaskina. That's not what we're talking about in our Mishnah. He corrects him. Kagoin di'ika diurim bahadayu. That's when there is diurim bahadayu. In this chatzar we're talking about, you have other people in this chatzar that share a chatzar with you. Then it's talking about the achim have to then contribute to the erev chatzeros for this eruv, the erev chatzeros in this chatzar, not in the adjoining chatzar next to them. The migo dahani asri hani nami asri. Since you have other diurim that are going to then aser upon you, therefore each and every one of you are going to aser on each other. You have to also bring an eruv. Hachinam mistaber, and it's mistaber that this is what the Mishnah is talking about. Diktani Eimosai, the Mishnah says, when are we talking about that the brothers have to contribute to an eruv each one? Bisman shemolichin es eruv mimokom acher. That's when they're bringing their eruv to another place in the chatzar itself. Aval im hayu eruvin ba'etzlam, if others in the chatzar would bring their eruv to where they're dwelling, oy she'ein diurin imahen bechatzar, or nobody else was living in the chatzar together with the achim, then ein tzrichin la'arev, they wouldn't have to be ma'arev. But the diuk would be if there was, other people that were living in the chatzar with the achim, they would have to then go ahead and contribute to the erev chatzeros. So shma mina, we can derive from here proof from our Mishnah. Now ask the Gemara, boy minei Rav Chia bar Avi me Rav Sheshes. Bnei Bei Rav, the students of a Beis HaMedrash, of a yeshiva, the ochlu nahama bebaga, who ate their bread in a field, in an inn in a field. Va'asu ubaisi bebei Rav. Then they came and they slept in the yeshiva. So the yeshiva students, they ate outside in the field, where there was an inn. That's where they ate. But they slept back in the yeshiva. So which is considered to be their residency? Ki mashchinan luhu tchuma. In regards to then measuring the tchum, mibei Rav mashchinan luhu or mibaga mashchinan luhu? Do we say they measure their erev tchumin from the place where they ate, or do we say from where they dwelled, where they lodged in the yeshiva? Omar lei, he responded, mashchinam in Beirav. We measure their erev tchumin from where they slept in the yeshiva. I asked the Gemara, v'harei noisein es eruvei b'soich alpayim amo. Person who places his eruv 2,000 amos, within 2,000 amos, v'osi u'baisi b'beisi de mashchinam leitchuma me'eruvei. And then he comes and he dwells, he lodges in his own house. We measure the tchum we measure the eruv from the tchum, where he placed the food, 2,000 amos away. So we see, not like you're saying, that it goes by where he dwelled. The yeshiva students, they ate in the field, and you're saying it goes by where they dwelled in the yeshiva. But we see from here in the Tchumim, it's not like that. Answers the Gemara, Behahu Anan Sahadi. In regards to Tchumim, that halacha we just mentioned, we have witnesses, meaning we can testify. Ubahada anan sahadi. And in regards to the yeshiva students, we can also testify as follows. Be'ahi anan sahadi. In regards to the din of Gabei Tchumin, where he put his eruv, his food, in the border, 2,000 amos away, and he dwelled in his house. There, the anan sahadi the imisdar le hasam nechale, that if he could dwell, he could have lodged over there where he placed his food, he would have been happy to do so. Ubehada anan sahadi, and over there by the yeshiva students, there we can also testify. If you would be able to bring the food to the yeshiva, they'd be happy to go ahead and eat in the yeshiva. So therefore, you don't have a kasha that we then measure the erev tchumim from where they dwelled in the yeshiva, because that's truly actually where they wanted to eat as well. So it's not going to be koveh because that's where they dwelled. It's because really where they're eating too. The machlokes between Rav and Shmuel above is when we have no indication one way or the other. On that, Rav says the pita, the food, that's going to be koveya, where his residency is, and according to Shmuel, is going to be where he lodges. That's going to be koveya, his residency. Ask the Gemara, boy, Rami bar Chama me Rav Chizda, Av ubnoi, a father and his son, Harav v'talmido, a Rebbe and his Talmud, kirabim damu, are they like the Rabbim, or like the Yechidim damu, or are they like Yechidim? In what aspect does it make a difference that they're Rabbim or Yechidim? If you have two chatzeros, one is an inner chatzer, one is an outer chatzer. The inner chatzer has access through the outer chatzer to go to the Reshus Harabim, or to the Mavui. And if it's a Yachi that lives in the inner chatzer, he will not oiser the outer chatzer. But if the inner chatzor did not make erev chatzeros and they're rabbim, then even if the outer chatzor didn't make an erev chatzeros, they will oiser the outer chatzeros. So we're asking over here, what is the din by a student and his rebbe, or a son and his father, in regards to, are they considered to be yachidim or rabbim? This is the nafka mina, if they will then oiser the bnei chatzor on the outer chatzor. Now another question: Tzrichin eruv or ain't tzrichin eruv? Do they need to make an eruv or not? In other words, our Mishnah really was dealing with this question that they do need to make an eruv, but we had a suffix as to what was the kavan of the Mishnah. Is it that they're eating in the father's table and dwelling in their own houses, or they're even eating in their own houses as well? Mavui shelahen niter belechi v'kare or ein niter belechi v'kare. A mavui needs to have two houses that go into a chatzar, and two chatzeros with 2 houses each going into the mavui, in order to be a valid mavui that you can go ahead and make a lechi or a kara, in order to then take care of the mavui and adjust it. So over here the question is this considered to be two chatzeros, two batim going to a chatzar, or not? Or two chatzeros going to the mavui or not? So Gemara says, Omar le tinisua. He said back then, we learned it in a brayso. Avu b'noi harav v'talmidoi bizman she'eini mohem diurin. When there's nobody who lives together with them in the same chatzar, harehen ki yechidim. They're like yechidim. Ve'ein tzrichin la'arev. They don't have to make an eruv. Umavui shelahen, and they don't have to make an eruv. As we said before, the question was, do they have to make eruv or not? So here we're saying that they would not have to make an eruv if there's nobody living together with them. Umemavui shelahen niter belechi v'kar, and the mavi is considered to be niter. It's like two chatzeros going into the mavui, and therefore they would not have to then therefore they would be able to then adjust the mavi with a lechi or a kara.